Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Fig Tree podcast. My name is Kurt Olson, and welcome to this new edition on April 9th, 2025. And I'm going to kick this off with tariffs. Um, the disclaimer at the top is this: I'm I know basic economics. Took one or two micro and macro economics in college. So I'm not an economics expert by any means, but I do not favor tariffs. Um, Several weeks ago, I put a Ronald Reagan radio address on tariffs back in the late 1980s as an addition to this podcast. Reagan was not a fan of tariffs. And when he was using them against Japan, regretted doing so um, because there are certain things that start unfolding when tariffs happen. So, with all of that said, I want to um, give you kind of a lay of the land here as to why what he announced about a week ago is unfolding. And off the top, we start with Charles Gasparino, who is a senior correspondent for Fox News Business, and he does some writing for the New York Post as well. And just this morning, he put on X the following. This is what I reported last night. It's the gamble that Main Street isn't getting hit because it really doesn't own enough stock to matter. Inflation hasn't set it, and layoffs aren't happening, so Team Trump has room to play hardball. But it's a gamble. And he said that in relation to the following. And it was someone kind of breaking news from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who said Wall Street has grown wealthier for 4 decades. For the next 4 years, it's Main Street's turn. So this is the gamble that Team Trump is waging on right now. That because people who are the wealthiest have profited from our strong economy for the most part over the last 40 years, minus COVID, minus a couple other times, um, that Main Street is going to get their turn. And supposedly there are 50 countries that have lined up to start wanting negotiations with Team Trump as he announced tariffs. If you're imposing them against us, we're going to impose them on you. And let's be honest, folks, America is the world's marketplace. America is the world's marketplace. They want our money, they want our stores, and it doesn't matter if it's Walmart, Target, J.C. Penney, or Amazon Prime. They want our market. And Elon Musk apparently has uh, counseled the president to create a US, Canada, Mexico, and Europe trade agreement. It would kind of make sense. These nations are similar. And that's what's going on with that. But we also have a group of senators who are basically saying presidents shouldn't be able to just do tariffs willy nilly. And that is primarily driven by the fact that our Constitution gives one body in our Constitution of the three branches, the power to raise taxes. The power to raise taxes comes from the Congress, and tariffs become a raised tax. So, don't know where the legislation's going to go, but that is a thing that is now happening, at least on the Senate side. But there is this unique balancing act that is being played out right now. And when I first heard about the tariffs, didn't like it, and especially with all the jittery uh, things with the stock market that were coming with it. Even though there's been some rebound here in recent days, but you still have bad economic and public policy being used. There's all kinds of ways that you can get people to the table to talk about trade, and you don't have to just threaten tariffs. Now, I've mentioned in the past that I'm on an email forum that has some fairly well connected people on the right. And I don't say that to somehow toot a horn or anything like that. I'm just suggesting that some of these people that are connected on this list are movers and shakers in right of center thinking. And some of these people are writers for like the National Review, other publications. Some of these people are in the military, higher ed, a variety of places. And there's there's a thinking the, a post that emerged about a week ago when this happened now has over 73 responses. Um, I've been willing to kind of sit back and kind of take in what people were saying on it. And there's a political gamble that Trump is taking here. Because if these tariffs hit Main Street, and tariffs tend to impact middle class and lower workers and business owners, you stand a chance for those independents that broke for him in 2024 to decisively shy away from him as we approach the 2026 midterm elections. And there is this rule in politics: if your opponent is destroying themselves, you don't do something to help them, you simply get out of the way. And unfortunately, this is giving the Democrats some ammo to kind of reinvigorate their party. And right now, their party, I don't think I have ever seen the Democrats in my lifetime sitting in the 20s in their popularity with Americans. But that's what's going on right now. And if this backfires on Trump, he will lose the House and could easily lose the Senate, and he would be officially a lame duck president. And but there are others right of center who are thinking these tariffs are long overdue. We need to decouple our economy from China. We need to help our allies decouple their economies from China. And this is the way to achieve that. Now, that's a legitimate argument. And there's a legitimate argument to the idea that, oh, if someone's putting tariffs on us, we put tariffs on them. And people have been taking advantage of us for decades. It still comes with political calculations, not to mention the potential ruinous aspects involving tariffs. Secondly, the media. I I came across something from the Free Press. The Free Press came out sometime in the last 4 years. Its top editor is Barry Weiss, formerly with the New York Times, and she had a couple of long-time Washington journalists on a podcast of hers titled "Honestly," and Jim Vandehey from Axios, which is a political website dealing with just the inside game of what's happening on Capitol Hill. And Jim Vandehey, and there's a part of this that I agree with, and a part of this I don't agree with. He basically said the decline of credibility and trust in the media has been happening in three phases in the last decade. He starts with the onset of Twitter and liberal journalists going on Twitter and basically telling people what they think about whatever the topic is, and it becoming like a left wing echo chamber. Secondly, COVID, with all of the things that involve the word policing that was going on, involving um, uh, defund police, vaccines, riots, you name it. And so all of that was going on in COVID. And then the third thing was the lack of coverage of the cognitive decline of former President Biden. And I can agree with all of those things, but I would argue the lack of credibility and trust in the media has been building for a long time. Maybe those three things accelerated it, but by no means did all of those things start just in the last 10 years, because the lack of credibility and trust in the mainstream or legacy media has been building over a long period of time. And I mean, I can even go back to the Reagan years and remembering the exchanges that he had with Sam Donaldson back in the day. And this has been an ongoing thing, and we would continue to have these Republicans who would want to play nicey nice with the media because they thought it would go in their favor, and others who understood they're not going to be our friend. They're going to bite us at some point. So all of that is happening with that. The third thing I want to bring to your attention is guns. And New York State is at it again. Two pieces of legislation have been um, passed in this state that are, if they end up being reconciled as bills, they stand to create yet another layer of trouble for gun owners in the state of New York. And it was just what, 3 years ago when the Supreme Court shot down a gun control bill in the state then, and they've been doing little things ever since to emphasize we are going to keep our thumb on all gun owners in the state of New York. And two bills have been passed separately. Uh, Senate Bill 745, Assembly Bill 439. And if there's one thing we know at this point, there is going to be something that comes from this, and there is going to be something that Governor Kathy Hochul is able to um, brag about come sometime in the summer. So, what they're doing is wanting to track the purchase of ammunition through credit card purchases. Okay? The first problem that opens up is a situation um where you have another layer of a bureaucracy at the state level in Albany, New York, with people having access to private information on individual New Yorkers. That's problem number one. The second thing that is a problem with these bills is you're they're going to make the argument that so and so are stockpiling ammunition. And who gets to define that? Who gets to say what stockpiling qualifies as and what it doesn't? And they could go lowball and say, "Oh, 500 rounds." Well, 500 rounds is basically someone at a gun range on an afternoon with their friends and just target practicing, or possibly even in their backyard. The the lower 40, if they happen to have it. And this is going to create an interesting situation where the state of New York could be tracking ammo purchases solely for the purpose of being able to say, we're concerned about you, and you. And they will use it as a means to do other things because this is a one party state and this is what New York State does. I want to hit on a couple things here near the end that are deeply troubling. The first one was written by a guy who does a lot of response to things happening in the legal sphere. His name is Jonathan Turley. Um, what I'm looking at right now was published on Monday. And there's something else that was published Monday as well. So there's two things that came out on Monday: the Turley piece and some research. I'm going to hit the high points of the Turley piece first. This is titled The American Jacobin: How Some on the Left Have Found Release in an Age of Rage. And he's referring to the Jacobins in France and how they wanted to take matters into their own hands, and they did. And he says, this is what we see happening on the left in our country. I'm going to read a few paragraphs of this. Across the country, liberals are destroying Tesla cars, torching dealerships and charging stations, and allegedly hitting political dissenters with their cars. Last week, affluent liberal shoppers admitted they were shoplifting from Whole Foods to strike back at Jeff Bezos for working with the Trump administration and moving the Washington Post back to the political center. They are also enraged at Mark Zuckerberg for restoring free speech protections at Meta. The 20-something communications professional in Washington, one 20-something communications professional in Washington explained, if a billionaire can steal from me, I can scrape a little off the top too. These affluent shoplifters portrayed themselves as Robin Hoods. Of course, that is assuming Robin Hood was stealing organic fruit from the rich and giving it to himself. On college campuses, affluent students and even professors are engaging in political violence. Just this week, University of Wisconsin professor Jose Felipe El Vergu, head of the English department, turned over the table at college Republicans supporting a conservative for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. He reportedly declared, "The time for this is over." Likewise, a mob this week attacked a conservative display in tent on the campus of the University of California, Davis, as campus police passively watched the Antifa protesters carrying a large banner with the slogan ACAB, which stands for All Cops Are Bastards, trashed the tent and carried it off. Antifa is a violent and vehemently anti free speech group that thrives on U.S. college campuses. In his book, Antifa, the Anti Fascist Handbook, Mark Bray explains that most Americans in Antifa have been anarchists and anti authoritarian communists. From that standpoint, free speech, as much as such, is merely a bourgeois fantasy untrustworthy of consideration. So that gives you a little taste of what he writes. I want to switch gears to a study that emerged the same day on Monday, the 7th, and this is something that was emerged in the New York Post. Democrats, this is the headline. Democrats are forming an assassination culture as Trump rises in power, new study reveals. A disturbing new report reveals that violent political rhetoric online, including calls for the murder of public figures like President Trump and Elon Musk, is being increasingly normalized, particularly on the left. The report from the Network Contagion Research Institute found that a growing number of people are willing to justify and even applaud killing in the name of politics and a warped sense of social justice. The chilling change appears to have accelerated in recent months. Quote, what was formerly taboo culturally has become acceptable, end quote. Joel Finkelstein, lead author of the report, told Fox News Digital. Quote, we are seeing a clear shift, glorification, increased attempts, and changing norms, all converging into what we define as assassination culture. The NCRI study traces the cultural shift back to the assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, allegedly by Luigi Mangione, in December 2024. What followed, researchers say, was a viral wave of memes that turned Mangione into a folk hero. According to the study, these memes have sparked copycat behavior targeting other figures associated with wealth and conservative politics. It's not just Luigi anymore, Finkelstein said. We're seeing an expansion. Trump, Musk, and others are now openly discussed as legitimate targets, often cloaked in meme culture and gamified online dialogue. A ballot measure in California, darkly named the Luigi Mangione Access to Healthcare Act, is just one real world outgrowth of this online movement. The NCRI conducted a nationally representative survey of more than 1,200 U.S. adults, weighted to reflect national consensus demographics. The findings were stark. Some 38% of respondents said it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Trump, and 31 said the same about Musk. When counting only left wing respondents, justification for killing Trump rose to 55% and Musk 48. These are not isolated opinions, the report states. They are part of a tightly connected belief system linked to what we call left wing authoritarianism. Trump represents the perfect target for assassination culture. He's powerful, he's rich, and he's provocative. That puts him on the highest shelf for those who glorify political violence. This, this study and this report goes on. And it talks about this culture that has arisen on the left. And this is scary, folks. I mean, I'm going to apply a biblical rule here. What's going on. We see this at the time of the judges in the Old Testament. Everybody did what was right in their own eyes. This is not the sign of a healthy culture. And when you have had the demonization of police just in recent years, and a belief system through Black Lives Matter that basically said all cops are bad, especially white cops. When you have this going on, it creates a mixture, a cauldron of bad things where people do whatever they want. And we've had situations just in recent years of people being beaten outside movie theaters, all kinds of places. This is bad stuff, folks. I'm just telling you, this this is a dark direction our country is taking. And we can't let this stand and have something that resembles at all of a functioning country where not just the rule of law exists, but basic standards of civility and discourse and understanding how to get along with other people. How much longer are we going to take this kind of stuff before other bad things start happening? And it goes beyond people who are just notably famous because they're a politician or they're a billionaire or they're the CEO of whatever the company. This is a bad direction, folks. And it's a time for tremendous concern for our country. And I want to end this podcast on a far more positive note. And that's why I'm going to link in the comments a rescue that happened in Hardy, Arkansas. Hardy, Arkansas, folks, is a little town between 700 and 800 people. And as we have seen the center of the country dealing with a lot of uh, rain and thunderstorms and tornadoes in recent weeks, we've had some flooding throughout the central part of the country. And Hardy, Arkansas was recently the scene of one of those. Now, what you will see in this video, just by way of spoiler, there's really no footage of the actual rescue. What you see is one of the people who was a rescuer and someone who was rescued. That's kind of a tip off of what was going on here. Talk about what unfolded and how first responders all across this country do this kind of thing. And they don't get nearly the credit that they deserve. And so, if you are a first responder and you listen to this podcast, first of all, thank you. But also, thank you for your service to your community. Whether you are a firefighter, you are a police officer, you are someone who does EMS, paramedic, any of that. So I am dropping a new column on Sunday. We are approaching going headlong toward Easter, as the spring is hopefully setting in soon. I mean, we've had snow here the last, what, Monday and Tuesday this week here in Western New York. Not enough for it to be measurable, but noticeable enough for it to be annoying. So, a reminder that we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. And until next time, God bless and goodbye.